10 major signs. She's cheating or losing interest. You'll never catch her in the act. Because cheating, emotional or physical, is rarely loud. It begins in silence, in distance, in subtle withdrawals masked as busy days and tired nights. If she's pulling away, this isn't about paranoia. It's about protecting your peace before it gets traded for her secrets. Men don't just lose a woman's love overnight. They lose her inch by inch, through disconnected glances, unfinished sentences, and the kind of silence that used to feel safe, but now feels like avoidance. This video isn't just about catching her cheating, it's about recognizing when a woman has emotionally left the room, even if her body is still in your bed. Let's get into the 10 major signs she's cheating or losing interest. And remember, not every sign confirms betrayal, but enough of them together. That's your cue to stop chasing and start reclaiming your self-worth. Sign 1. Physical intimacy fades without explanation. When a woman begins to detach physically, it rarely happens without a reason. The touch that once felt natural becomes absent. Her body language changes. Hugs become brief. Kisses feel forced. The desire is no longer mutual, it's mechanical. If she once craved closeness and now recoils, don't dismiss it. Sometimes the body leaves before the heart admits it. And if she's finding emotional or sexual fulfillment elsewhere, she'll slowly shut that door with you, quietly, without confrontation. You'll feel it before you see it. A cold bed, a half-hearted response to affection, an excuse for every attempt at intimacy. This isn't just a low libido, it's distance. And it's not always because she's cheating, but someone is now feeding what used to be yours to nurture. Sign 2. Her communication turns transactional. She once talked to you like her world revolved around you. Now every text is delayed. Every phone call feels like an obligation. The enthusiasm in her voice, gone. Her laughter, muted. When a woman loses emotional interest or gains it elsewhere, her words become colder. Conversations turn into check-ins. She used to ask how your day was. Now she just says, "Okay," and puts her phone down. This is especially dangerous when paired with sudden privacy. She'll tell you nothing's wrong, but you'll feel everything changing, because energy never lies. When the emotional connection starts to rot, it always shows in how she speaks, or how little she does. Sign 3. She becomes obsessively protective of her phone. The phone was once just a device. Now it's a guarded secret. She tilts the screen away when you walk in. She panics if you even glance at a notification. Her phone is always on silent, always upside down, always face down on the table. You're not looking for proof. You're noticing patterns. A woman who has nothing to hide doesn't hide, but a woman entangled in guilt lives in defense mode. And her phone becomes the gatekeeper of her betrayal. You don't need to read her messages. Her behavior is already the message, and it's speaking volumes. Sign 4. She starts accusing you. Guilt has a strange way of turning outward. If she's the one cheating, or emotionally slipping away, she might accuse you of being distant, sneaky, or unfaithful. Projection becomes her shield. If she's carrying a secret, she'll start asking about yours. Suddenly, she's asking who you were texting. She's angry you came home late. She's suspicious of your kindness. But what you're seeing is guilt with no place to go. And so, she offloads it onto you. The man who's been steady becomes the villain in her imagination. Why? Because it's easier to point the finger than to look in the mirror. Sign 5. She redefines her online presence. She used to post about you, tag you, include you in her world. Now, silence. Worse, she starts posting thirst traps. Lingerie, bikini photos, late-night selfies she never used to share. She'll call it self-love. But deep down, it's an invitation, an unspoken broadcast to someone she hopes is watching. It doesn't always mean she's cheating, but when her attention shifts from nurturing your relationship to seeking online validation, something's broken. Women don't abandon what they still admire. And if her image now caters to strangers, ask yourself, why is your approval no longer enough? Sign 6. Her schedule becomes a mystery. When a woman is present, you'll feel it in the rhythm of her life. Her time is open to you. She tells you where she's going, who she's with, what time she'll be home, not because you demanded it, but because emotional intimacy thrives in transparency. But when she starts to pull away, when she starts mentally checking out or emotionally investing elsewhere, her life becomes compartmentalized. She suddenly forgets to tell you about that dinner with her co-workers. She's out with friends more often, but you're never invited. Plans shift last minute, and the explanations feel vague, more like placeholder answers than honest conversation. One night she's working late. The next she's just exhausted. Eventually, her routine becomes a puzzle with too many missing pieces. You're left filling in the blanks, and that confusion, that's the space where suspicion starts to grow. Now, this isn't about paranoia. It's about patterns. And the pattern of someone who's emotionally gone is that they stop offering you access to their world. The thing is, someone who's being faithful, someone who's still invested in you, wants to share their schedule. They don't avoid details. They don't get defensive when you ask casual questions. But someone who's hiding something, their life suddenly becomes a locked room. You're on the outside, and every knock at the door gets answered with, "Why don't you trust me?" But that's the point. Trust isn't about interrogation. It's about energy. When the energy shifts, when their world starts moving in shadows, that's when clarity becomes more valuable than comfort. You don't need GPS. You don't need to stalk her. You just need to trust the feeling that she's pulling away. Because most men notice the mystery long before they find the evidence. Sign 7. She doesn't fight anymore. She just disconnects. You know what's worse than fighting? A woman who no longer cares enough to fight. When she was emotionally invested, even the smallest things sparked a reaction. Maybe she'd nag, get annoyed, demand attention. It wasn't always healthy, but at least it showed she still had emotional skin in the game. Passion and love, even when flawed, are still forms of connection. But when her interest fades, so does the fire. She stops confronting. She stops correcting. She stops trying. You ask her what's wrong, and she replies, "Nothing." You try to fix things, and she says it's fine. And at first, you might feel relieved. No more arguments, no more tension. But what you're really experiencing is the death of effort. Because indifference is a louder message than anger. Anger at least says, "I'm hurt, I still care." Indifference says, "You no longer affect me." This is one of the hardest pills for a man to swallow. Not her absence, but her apathy. You show up with solutions. She shows up with silence. You try to repair. She's already emotionally packed her bags. And here's the part most men don't realize. When a woman stops engaging in the emotional friction of a relationship, she's often found a new source of emotional stimulation. It may not be physical cheating yet, but she's emotionally outsourcing the intimacy she no longer feels with you. So pay attention, not to her words, but her willingness. When her only response is detachment, she's telling you everything you need to know without saying a word. Sign 8. She stops, including you in her future. The way someone speaks about the future tells you everything about how they feel in the present. When a woman sees you as part of her life, her language reflects it. She says things like, "We should go there. I can't wait until we move in. Let's do that together." She naturally includes you in her vision because you're part of what makes it meaningful. But when her words shift from we to me, it's not just a change in vocabulary, it's a subtle rewriting of the relationship. She stops involving you in decisions. She makes plans without consulting you. You find out about her upcoming trip from social media instead of her. The future becomes something she protects from you rather than something she builds with you. At first, it might not feel like a big deal. You might even tell yourself, she's just busy, or she needs some space. But space, when it's not balanced with effort, becomes emotional distance. And emotional distance almost always points to detachment. Here's the truth most men avoid. When a woman no longer includes you in her vision of tomorrow, she's already started closing the chapter today. Whether she's cheating or just checked out, she's no longer anchored to the idea of us. She's drifting, testing how it feels to live without you. That shift is quiet, but powerful. And the hardest part? She'll still say she loves you, while subconsciously erasing you from her life. It's in the way she plans a girl's trip without telling you. It's in the job application she never mentioned. It's in the future you thought you were part of, but now realize you're not even in the outline. Stoicism teaches us not to react impulsively, but to observe with clarity. So if she's no longer including you in her future, don't beg to be part of it. Step back, reclaim your own, and remember, a man who honors his time doesn't chase someone who no longer values being in it. Sign 9. She starts criticizing who you are, not what you do. Criticism in a relationship isn't always toxic. In fact, when it's constructive, it can be a sign of emotional investment. But there's a difference between a partner who calls out your behavior and one who attacks your identity. Pay attention to what she says during moments of conflict. Has she stopped saying, "That upset me," and started saying, "You're selfish"? Does she no longer point out what you did, but instead imply who you are at your core is wrong? This shift is subtle but brutal. It's no longer about improving the relationship, it's about devaluing you. And when a woman starts doing this, it often means her emotional loyalty is fading. Maybe she's comparing you to someone else. Maybe she's already emotionally cheating. Maybe she's just out of love and doesn't know how to leave. But the result is the same. You're no longer being seen through the lens of partnership, but through the lens of judgment. The real tragedy here is that you might start to believe her. You begin to question yourself. You overanalyze your words, your tone, your actions, not to grow, but to avoid her next verbal landmine. And that's the trap, because now you're no longer in a relationship. You're in an emotional performance, hoping to win back the approval of someone who's already decided you're not enough. This type of criticism drains a man of his power. Not because he's weak, but because he loves deeply, and that love is weaponized against him. But Stoicism reminds you, you are not her perception. You are your principles. If she can no longer speak to you with respect, if she starts dismantling your worth instead of supporting your growth, then staying becomes a slow form of self-erasure. Choose to walk, not to prove her wrong, but to stop proving yourself at all. You were never meant to convince someone of your value, only to embody it. Sign 10. Your intuition won't let you rest. You've seen the signs, you've felt the shift, you've noticed the coldness in her eyes, but you keep brushing it off, telling yourself, it's just stress, she's been tired, we'll get through it. You're trying to stay rational, stoic, unreactive, but there's one thing you can't escape, your gut. That quiet voice inside you that whispers in moments of stillness. It doesn't yell, it doesn't panic. It simply says, something's not right. This is the final and most powerful sign, not from her, but from you. Men are often taught to ignore intuition, to be logical, detached, to wait for proof. But the truth is, by the time you see proof, the betrayal has already taken root. Your intuition doesn't need evidence. It picks up on what words try to hide. It feels the energy shift, the emotional absence, the cold patterns she denies. And the longer you suppress it, the more disconnected from yourself you become. Until one day, you realize you weren't betrayed by her first. You betrayed yourself by refusing to act when you already knew. This is your inner wisdom, the part of you that doesn't lie. And when it speaks, it's not asking for logic. It's asking for alignment. You don't need to explode. You don't need to accuse. You simply need to acknowledge the truth and protect your peace. Because the man who honors his intuition doesn't chase clarity, he embodies it. And the moment you choose your peace over her presence, you stop being the man who waits and become the man she'll regret losing. The truth is, a woman doesn't have to cheat with her body to cheat on your heart. Detachment, secrecy, loss of respect, those are betrayals too. And as a man grounded in Stoicism, you don't chase to prove your worth. You observe. You choose peace over pleading. You walk when staying means bleeding. Because walking away doesn't make you cold, it makes you conscious. The moment you stop needing answers, you start giving yourself the closure you were waiting on her to deliver. Let her wonder why you didn't beg. Let her regret the way she overlooked consistency, loyalty, and presence. You didn't lose her, you lost the illusion. And now, you've got room to rebuild, not for revenge, but for rebirth.